Russian scientists claim that they have finally solved the mystery of the Egyptian pyramids. In their opinion, this is not just a tomb of the pharaohs, but high-tech structures that work as cosmic energy converters. What is true, and what is an incredible hypothesis that forces scientists to revise the canons of world history? Not all pyramids have been found in Egypt. Archaeologists from the University of North Carolina made this discovery thanks to satellite images. In the photos, they saw two groups of strange objects, almost completely buried in the sand. The first complex is located in the very center of the desert, near the city of Abyshum. A giant triangular-shaped structure is clearly visible here. It is 3 times the size of the Pyramid of Cheops. Another large pyramid is located 200 kilometers to the north. But is it by chance that all these objects are visible from space? And is this related to their purpose on Earth? The secrets of the universe are kept not only by pyramids, but also by ancient temples standing nearby. Their architecture is unique, and their sculptures and murals are perfect. Most pyramids have no inscriptions, whereas temples are the main source of cultural and scientific heritage of an ancient, highly developed civilization. The Hathor Temple in Dendera is a special place. It is located far from tourist routes and relatively little studied. Scientists cannot explain the fantastic murals on its walls. It depicts technological processes unknown to us. This is due to cosmic processes, seismic processes, and much deeper processes related to the vital activity of the sun and the consciousness of the earth. This is a very complex mechanism. The Dendera temple contains all this information. I can say for sure, we know very little about the Denderian zodiac and about this temple in general. This temple has not yet revealed its secrets to us. It was a huge ritual complex. To this day, only the main temple of Hathor itself has survived, the goddess of love, femininity, and fertility. When it was built, archaeologists cannot say. On the walls there are hieroglyphs with the names of pharaohs in various eras. And the so-called inscriptions of the builders say, the temple was built not by people, but by demigods. Shimsugur, who ruled ancient Egypt after the gods, but before the pharaohs. This temple has not been rebuilt many times. No reconstruction was done, only restoration was completed in full accordance with the project drawn up during the time of Shamsugur. Ancient texts say that high priests and pharaohs were initiated in the temple of Hathor. The construction of the building was incredibly important for these mysteries. Biophysicists have established a special electromagnetic background there, although there are no radiation sources. These are the waves of the planet, but they are amplified many times due to the material of the walls and a certain size of the premises. This was probably not done by chance. Increased radiation affects the human brain. In this way, you can enter a special state of consciousness.
It uses the effect of standing waves in this structure, remaining in a number of rooms. This is an indisputable fact, because if you go there, focus just on the sensations of the body, then we begin to feel that even our body reacts to it. And it's not autosuggestion. There is dizziness, there is the effect of goosebumps in humans, and the like. Regardless of how you are set up, what you think, it is our body that reacts either to an electromagnetic wave or to an acoustic wave.
Indeed, in the hall of Anubis, the god of the dead with the head of a jackal, people are seized with inexplicable horror and panic. But this is not mysticism, and not the studied physics of this place. Scientists suggest that the room generates or enhances natural infrasound. And infrasound waves, by the way, are transmitted over long distances without changes better than others.
Apparently, the building is arranged in such a way that the wave frequency will be different at each level. Why this was done, and I do not know. Perhaps there was equipment on each floor of its own, which reacted to a certain wavelength. but in general, according to the legends themselves, which are associated with the Dendera and the images that are there, it seems that this complex was directly related to biology. Maybe a wellness center, maybe a revitalizing center, maybe conduct some kind of biological experiments there.
Crypts, ancient dungeons of the Temple of Hathor, keep amazing riddles. These are 14 strange rooms carved right into the thickness of the foundation walls. It is here that the paintings that generate so many questions are located. What are these objects in the hands of the gods? What does it have to do with hieroglyphs meaning energy and immortality? These are all tools that allow you to influence the speed during the internal biological time. And when we talk about the human body, about the mechanisms by which it functions, mechanisms that allow the human energy system to interact with the outer space, with the temple, and so on. All of this, one way or another, is connected with the fields of time. Why is there a snake sitting inside the lamp? What process is depicted here? Proponents of alternative history claim that these are electric lamps and electroplating. An argument is given as an argument. How were the crypts themselves illuminated when applying these bas-reliefs if no traces of soot or oil were found in any of them? What we sort of understand as lamps are not lamps. Always, when it comes to energies, the image of a snake is used, which has, as it were, its body folded into a kind of zigzag or spiral. These are all energies. This is a very interesting knowledge from the sections of the priestly school, telling about how to prepare a priest or a neophyte for great communication with the outside world, with the gods, and with himself. But the most important value of the Dendera temple is the color paintings on the ceilings, some of which have preserved their splendor to this day. In the main hall with massive columns at the height of 18 feet depicts a linear zodiac, and on the upper floor, round the calendar. Here in front of you is a zodiac calendar, but it's not the original. The original is now in France. The original golden zodiac was chipped and taken away by French archaeologists during Napoleon's invasion of Egypt. Today it is kept in the Louvre. Hundreds of astrologers from different countries have tried to date the position of the stars on the calendar of disasters. They did not get a single date until the 3000th year BC. The researchers did not look further into the centuries, and in vain. Speaking in particular about the so-called Denderian zodiac, in short, this is a kind of catastrophic calendar of very important events that have occurred in the solar system over the past few tens of thousands of years. Candidate of Technical Sciences Svetlana Pavlova has devoted many years to deciphering the Denderian zodiac. She was working with a photocopy of the original. Svetlana Nikolaevna discovered, in the calendar, with the help of mathematics and geometry, the most important message was written down. When I looked, without delving into this Denderian zodiac itself, I just looked at it and realized that the Egyptians had an incredible level of knowledge, that they could not just draw a figure, that they had to obey certain laws.
Что они не могли просто так нарисовать фигуру, что они должны определенным закономерностям подчиняться.
Their location should record some moments, they should transmit information. This is not a decorative picture. They just took it for something and drew it for interior decoration. The Denderian zodiac depicts a starry sky, but not today's, but such as people saw 13,500 years ago, and the planets of the solar system, which are one more than we knew. There is a perfect coincidence of astronomical coordinates in the whole picture, but some figures denoting constellations and planets are not where they should be. It's hardly an accident. And this already says that this can't be with that one. There's something to it. This is a freeze frame. That's why the decryption begins from here. Svetlana Pavlova seems to have restored the meaning of the Chronicle of the Great Catastrophe. An unknown planet is depicted between Mars and Jupiter on the Denderian zodiac. Her symbol Seth is the god of war and destruction, so it was destroyed. Indeed, today there is an asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Astronomers assume that there used to be a planet there. It was named the same as in the ancient Greek myth, Phaeton. The Egyptians recorded the death of Phaeton on this zodiac. Now, before me, I think I will continue to do this in the future, but so far I have seen another catastrophe. The second action of the apocalypse was connected with our planet. After the death of Phaeton, time on Earth stopped, went in the opposite direction, and only then returned to its course. Svetlana Pavlova drew this conclusion from the location of these gods of time, the Deans. In their scale or time cycle, they stand unevenly. Such a turn of events is possible after an asteroid impact, which caused the planet to rotate in the opposite direction. Was it a fragment of a Phaeton? Here is a figurine of the goddess denoting the Earth. She holds a baboon on her outstretched hand, and the baboon stands for the god of the moon. The Earth received the moon after the disaster. And here's another image. Scales, in the center of which a child puts his finger to his mouth. It turns out that the Earth and the moon balanced some kind of celestial body, but this is a big mystery. This is not the only space disaster of the past. And worst of all, terrible events occur periodically. Svetlana Pavlova continues to work with zodiac to calculate dangerous moments. This is the cycle that is clearly indicated here. It is 20, well, roughly speaking, 26,000 years. And this cycle has already passed through the Earth more than once. And this means that the cosmic Earth hits certain points, which are marked here regularly. And this regularity is expressed in a very rare arrangement of Deans. The apocalypse is inevitable, but when is unclear. However, how true is this transcript of the Dendera calendar, and confirm whether it's other facts? It turns out, yes. This fresco is a fragment of a painting from the tomb of Pharaoh Ramses VI. The male figure in the center symbolizes the sun. There are two planets on either side of it, on the third line in a row. Does this mean that there are two planets in our solar system in the third orbit? The second celestial body, as seen, is larger than the Earth. On the tender zodiac, the Earth was given the moon to balance with something. How is this possible? Astrophysicist Kirill Butusov explains. For a long scientific biography, he made a lot of discoveries. According to his calculations, astronomers around the world find celestial bodies in space. Perhaps the professor's main theory will be confirmed soon. He discovered a new planet in the solar system, and most likely it is inhabited. For us, this is a civilization of the gods, which generally commands the entire solar system and controls everything that happens here. It turns out that way, right? Academician Butusov did not specifically look for the 10th planet. Its existence was confirmed by the laws of symmetry of the solar system, which he discovered. According to them, there must be another planet in Earth's orbit. It can hide in the so-called vibration point. One vibrational point is located near the Earth on the line connecting the Earth with the Sun, and the other is located behind the Sun, almost in the orbit of the Earth. Here is the second one, the so-called collinear or linear vibration point. These points are unstable. Therefore, if a body is placed there at this point, it will walk with the same period as the Earth around the Sun. But we will not see each other, but the period will be the same. The Sun obscures from telescopes an area equal to 600 diameters of the Earth. That is, there may be many bodies hiding behind it. Therefore, this planet has not been discovered so far. And terrestrial devices do not photograph everything around. Their camera is focused on well-defined areas, and no one has ever set the task to search for the Sun. Kirill Butusov named the planet behind the Sun Gloria. It turns out that the initiates knew about it. In various chronicles, it is called the anti-Earth, the utopia of Repetvin. This information has always been a special secret of the priests. Since it is located in the same conditions as the Earth, at the same distance from the Sun, it means that there must be the same climatic conditions as on Earth. That is, the temperature should be maintained the same, and so on and so on. And if this body rotates, then there must also be a change of day and night, right? But have scientists also observed this celestial body? On January 25, 1672, the director of the Paris Observatory, Giovanni Domenica Cassini, discovered an unknown planet in the sky near Venus. The astronomer decided that he had discovered a Venusian satellite. The next time he saw him was in 1686 year. English astronomer James Short observed this unknown body already in 1740. Then the supposed planet appeared from behind the Sun in 1759. She was noticed by the German Andreas Mayer. We now know that Venus has no satellite. And what is interesting is that if this is our body, our solar system, it is already illuminated by the Sun. And we will see it in the form of a sickle. And this body was sickle-shaped. So this body has been observed for about 100 years by different astronomers. They see it, they don't see it. Then this body appears, then it does not exist. Where it goes is unclear. According to Kirill Butusov's theory, the position of the planet behind the Sun is artificial. It is unstable and depends on the Earth. Any large explosion caused by humans can create a wave that will push the anti-Earth out of its orbit. Then the two heavenly bodies will go towards each other. Well, maybe the orbits do not coincide. They are slightly inclined relative to each other. All this will pass, but this body will still pass close and cause such terrible disturbances on Earth that civilization may perish. I thought that there is a higher civilization there than ours, and they will not allow this to happen. Since they come to us here, they control. Indeed, eyewitnesses observe flying saucers during natural disasters, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, typhoons, and tsunamis. Nuclear tests and ballistic missile launches are always controlled by UFOs. Could this be proof of the existence of a habitable planet beyond the Sun? So the Earth is sitting at the vibrational point of Gloria, and Gloria is sitting at the vibrational point of the Earth. And then we will push out with the help of our explosions into the ground to leave. And then we will meet. God forbid that happens. Can the data obtained from Mars confirm this theory? The two planets are located in the belt of life, the optimal distance from the Sun, and have almost the same astronomical parameters. Mars, it's very similar to Earth in many ways, and it's very amazing. These are probably two such planets that are like twins, but differ in size. Mars is about 2 times smaller than Earth, well, 1.5 to 2, so I must say, between these values. Here, the Earth's axis is 23.5 degrees from the plane of the ecliptic. Mars has 25 degrees. The duration of the day on Earth is 24 hours. Mars has almost 25 hours, a little more. Mars and Earth, unlike other solid bodies of the solar system, have a magnetic field. It protects against cosmic radiation. The atmosphere of both planets consists of the same gases, but we have much more oxygen. The terrain is very similar. These two worlds have mountains, plains, rivers, and seas. Water, the main conditions for biological life, also exists on Mars, only there it is all frozen. There is a lot of water on Mars. Polar caps, northern and southern polar caps, they contain both water and carbon dioxide. So, if there is a riverbed, then there was free water. If there was free water, then the temperature was different. At the first glance at Mars, it is clear that this world is not just dead, but killed, and not very long ago. The orbit is strangely elongated. The red planet passes too close to the Sun and is carried very far away. The Martian day is less than it should be. The axis of rotation writes out wild pretzels in space. The surface is pitted with monstrous pits from blows. A cosmic catastrophe occurred on Mars, which deprived it of its atmosphere and thereby destroyed all the ecosystems of Mars. It destroyed all living things, the atmosphere, the rivers dried up, and she became dead. The planet has become a dead desert. The Martian region of Cydonia is known as the center of mysterious artifacts. There are more than a dozen pyramids located here. The resolution of modern images leaves no doubt about the geometry of these objects. However, the dimensions of their height are some 500 meters. The length of the base is 2 kilometers. They are 5–10 times bigger than the Egyptian ones. For us, they are gigantic, but for the inhabitants of the Martian civilization, which may have perished, may still live somewhere. It was probably more developed. For them, it was a kind of norm. There is a certain pattern in terms of the Martian pyramids. They are located at perfectly right angles. Some of them look like terrestrial pyramids, but there are others of unprecedented designs. In addition to triangular pyramids, there is a formation of 5 hexagonal, more complex ones, and there are also some oval ones, such as cones. And it seems that the cones are like volcanoes, you can say, but some cones have the upper part cut off completely evenly. In some cones, we observe again holes like these that go down. Not far from the pyramid complex, there is another famous riddle, the Martian Sphinx. The face is 1.5 kilometers in size. There are only 3 pictures of this intriguing mountain, and researchers have already built a lot of theories on them. The first 2 were taken by the American Viking camera in 1976 year. Here is picture number 1, here with one shadow, as if the sun was at one angle, and then picture number 2. The sun was at a different angle, and in both pictures, the contours are repeated. The third photo session was held by Mars orbiter 30 years later. As can be seen in the higher resolution images, there is no human face there. There is only a bizarre play of light and shadow. The publication of these frames gave rise to another conspiracy theory. Allegedly, NASA retouched the images and again hides traces of aliens. But seekers of extraterrestrial artifacts can rest easy. Face or not, the central axis of the largest pentahedral pyramid points exactly to it. Probably for a reason. The facade of this monster pyramid has 3 faces at an angle of 60 degrees. The center is directed at the pseudoface, the left edge, on the ruins of the city, right at the top of the dome structure. There are some structures, factories, villages, roads, a destroyed observatory, so I conditionally called it. With blue domes of the observatory, a giant radio telescope, a huge mirror of gigantic dimensions.
Гигантский радиотелескоп, огромное зеркало гигантских размеров.
Geologists are still racking their brains about structures on the other side of the planet. In the region of Acidalia, corrugated pipes pass through the gorge between the Martian rocks. They're huge. Their diameter is sometimes 300 meters. The length is up to 40 kilometers. The ends of the pipes go underground or into the rock. Pipes bend under the landscape, join, sometimes at right angles. These objects were called the land of tunnels or Martian glassworms. Yes, glassworms are giant corpses of wire. Either these are transport pipelines, or water is really pumped through them, we do not know. Here. In other words, we just don't know anything at all about what's going on there. The apparatuses made a detailed map of Mars. Its surface shows us the traces of a cosmic catastrophe. A monstrous scar, a sinuous furrow thousands of kilometers long. This is the Mariner Valley. Its depth is 11 kilometers, and its width is about 200. A little more, and the planet would crack in half. There is one canyon, a scar, so incredibly deep, and 200 kilometers wide. It has a length of a quarter of the circumference of the entire Mars. That's how it is around. The unique mystery of Mars. The entire northern hemisphere is 3 kilometers lower in altitude than the southern hemisphere, and the dividing line runs almost exactly along the equator. On one side of it are the 3 largest craters in the solar system: Hellas, Isis, and Argyros. These are the traces of 3 giant asteroids that surprisingly stuck together into the crust and pierced the mantle. Or maybe these are not the traces of meteorites at all, but of some kind of weapon that we do not know. Maybe once there were races at war, and these races destroyed each other. We were left alone. The impact spawned 3 huge volcanoes on the reverse side of Mars, which pass into the abyss of the Mariner Valley. It was enough to destroy any life forms on the planet. On Mars, it was a catastrophe similar to the one if a billion hydrogen bombs were detonated simultaneously on Earth. Approximately. Powerful and Mars noticed much less than Earth. Where did the killer stones come from? Astronomers are turning their eyes to the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. According to all calculations, there used to be a planet there, but now there are only fragments left. Ancient texts call it Phaidon sometimes. Tiamat. Scientists decided to designate the same. Science believes that one day Phaidon split into pieces, and Mars, as the nearest neighbor, took a lot of blows on itself. Alexei Samorukov suspects that in a previous life he had a relationship with the ancient civilizations of Earth or Mars, and may have seen the death of Phaidon. Memories began to come to him after a lot of stress. That day, in a state of extraordinary happiness, he sat down at the table, and his hand seemed to draw a diagram of a certain apparatus by itself. I really had a joyful day. My first daughter was born. I was in a state of, shall we say, inadequate understanding what I'm doing. I drew this, and only in the morning I saw this piece of paper with a pen on the kitchen table when I came to drink coffee. Alexei at first did not even understand what he had reproduced on paper. However, I decided not to throw the sheet away. Later, he saw a film about the brilliant scientist Nikola Tesla and his experiments with electromagnetism. There's a hunch in my head. A long time ago, people flew on ships using this principle of operation. I saw it in my dreams afterwards. I've seen it kind of. How can I explain it to you? A dump is not a dump. A dump is not a dump. But it's not on Earth. It's somewhere far away in space, on another planet. I walked next to them. It was all overgrown with, say, moss of that time. I've seen these devices from the inside. Then I realized what I had drawn. A universal platform for creating anti-gravity. Alexei Samorukov studied a lot of works on physics and realized that the device does not contradict any laws. The effect is created due to the rotation of 2 magnetic disks in a special way and an acoustic wave. It's an electromagnetic cushion that creates its own gravity. It will have an independent gravity from our planet, so it will be called anti-gravity. This is a device capable of lifting air to a certain required height of the object. Other devices will move this object. These are the same electric turbines powered by energy. Vehicles with these engines can perform fantastic maneuvers like UFOs. They don't need roads and resources from the bowels of the planet. They do not pollute the air and do not get into accidents. Alexei is ready to give this invention to the world, but first you need to make at least a prototype, and this is impossible at home. What I suggest she do will be the same as this unidentified flying object here. He will also change the trajectory, since he will not need crazy aerodynamic abilities in order to make a U-turn and so on. He can simply become in the air at any moment. This technology, as they say, is all completely new, long forgotten old. We forgot about it. Not you, the people who live now, but those who knew about it millennia ago. Alexei is sure that sometimes he sees his reincarnations in dreams. Other worlds of unimaginable beauty are cosmic landscapes of different creatures. One dream repeats itself. He is the captain of an interstellar ship that hangs in the orbit of the planet. There is a terrible disaster on the monitors, impending with colossal speed, and he does not have time to do anything. The planet explodes. Fire and shrapnel destroy his spaceship. Everything dies, and Alexei wakes up in this life, in horror and cold sweat. Yes, I see it in my dreams. I see different planets. I see explosions of planets. I hear communication of entities. Perhaps it's all the information in the old bygone years that I'm falling into. I see it. I pull something out of there. I wake up in a cold sweat from the explosions. It is officially believed that life on Mars died millions of years ago, but there is evidence that it could have been much closer to our time. Mars is covered with hundreds, maybe thousands, of a huge number of meteorite craters of various sizes. But it is characteristic that these craters are fresh in appearance. They are not ancient, not buried, not destroyed, but fresh, well, geologically fresh. A lot of meteorites have been found on Earth, which came to us from Mars during a space disaster. The largest of them is a 16-kilogram Yamato stone. It was discovered in the 2001 year in Antarctica. All these fragments are of the same age. 13,000 years old, it is already a crust of melted oxides of secondary minerals, which suggest that it entered the Earth's atmosphere at that time. This is a fairly accurate date of the catastrophe in the solar system. Scientists cannot answer the question of why the Phaidon split into pieces. Some talk about the passage of asteroid cloud sections by the solar system. Others are about approaching wandering planets. How could it happen that this date coincides with the date recorded in the Tender Zodiac? In Egyptian temples, there is often such a ball or disk with wings. It marks the territory of the gods. Was it a hint of their planet? Egyptologists have agreed to consider this symbol a sign of the god Horus the Elder. The Great Sphinx was painted red in ancient times. He personified a celestial deity or planet, which Egyptian astronomers called Horus the Red, aka Mars. Both the monument and the neighboring planet in the annals are called Gur the Elder, Gur on the horizon. In the secret rooms of Egyptian temples, there are records that the gods came from Mars, the red planet. The information in its entirety came from the same civilization. The Earth was civilized by the civilization of Mars and Phaeton. These were not any distant civilizations of other or galaxies, especially, or let's say, another segment or section of the galaxy. It was the closest to us, a very highly developed civilization of Mars. And she conveyed knowledge in a fairly holistic way. As I have already said, this knowledge is adapted for the people living here. On the other side of the Earth, there are also indications of the planet of the gods. The Teotihuacan Pyramid Complex is located in Mexico. As the legends say, it was built by the gods after the Great Flood. Modern researchers have paid attention to the proportions between the buildings. If we superimpose a map of the solar system on the scheme of this complex, then the distance between the pyramids will exactly coincide with the distance between the planets. In place of our star is the largest pyramid of the Sun. There is the second largest pyramid on the site of the Earth. Archaeologists call it the Pyramid of the Moon. The Pyramid of Quetzalcoatl falls into the orbit of Mars. It was a deity of the Indians, whose name meant both the feathered serpent and the heavenly sage. In addition, the ratio of the diameter of Mars to the diameter of our planet is 0.532 thousandths. Exactly the same is the proportion between the height of the pyramids of Quetzalcoatl and the Earth. This is too obvious a coincidence. Vladimir Ravinsky has found another mathematical proof of the connection between the Martian civilization and the Earth. The scientist considers his discovery not accidental. Many years ago, in the Egyptian pyramid of Cheops, he had an amazing experience. I was in the pyramid, looked into the sarcophagus, so cabbage. After that, frankly speaking, I almost lost my mind. There was some kind of micropulse puncture, or something I would call it. From somewhere on top of this pyramid, which is the concentrator of these terrestrial cosmic energies, some kind of ray or pulse passed. Well, it touched my consciousness a little bit. The Russian geologist got into a kind of information beam that went through the top of the pyramid at the head of the empty sarcophagus. This is how, according to descriptions, the pharaohs became gods. The pyramid expanded the boundaries of their consciousness and endowed them with superpowers. A piece of time revealed, well, to me, clearly all the pictures of the past and the future. All the secrets, riddles, sounds, sensations, and so on. It was absolutely clear what kind of pyramid, who was there or was not there, and instantly disappeared. Only a gray film remained in my memory, like from a burned letter. Vladimir Ovinsky was friends with the famous science fiction writer Alexander Kazantsov. The theme of Mars and Phaeton fascinated the latter so much that he created a novel of Theta, where he described the tragic fate of the lost world. It was Kazantsov who drew the attention of Vladimir Ovinsky to the strange regularity of the location of stones in the ancient British observatory Stonehenge. That's how it all started. In terms of Stonehenge, I found such a strange figure, a special pentagram. So this pentagram differs in that it is built on an 11-sided one. This figure uses an angle equal to 1/11 of the arc of the circle. Ovinsky called it alpha corner. For the sake of interest, I began to look for it in other structures of ancient civilizations, and found it in each. The step pyramid of the Earth fits, as it is written here, in 6 alpha. And literally all spheres of knowledge obey this principle. Either in geometric terms through the critical angle alpha multiplied by 2, 3, 5, 6, or in metric terms 11. 2244 is like a world constant. These numbers have always been sacred to secret societies. For example, in mystical Islam, 11 means one of the names of Allah. Ancient Egypt was ruled by only 11 Hierophant priests, keepers of knowledge. 22 panels were found in the tomb of Khizr, the chief architect of the pharaoh, on which the principles of world harmony were inscribed. 22 arcana of the tarot, 33 years of Christ, and the same number of degrees of initiation into the Masonic Brotherhood. When I dug further, all ancient Egyptian art. Right. Numerous other pyramids. And most importantly, the internal structure of the Pyramid of Cheops is completely controlled by alpha pentageometry, as I say. And then Vladimir Vinsky attached his magic pentagon to the plan of the Martian pyramids. The alpha angle was used everywhere. Structures on Earth and on Mars are built according to a single engineering plan. Does this mean the continuity of civilizations?
The facts suggest that the complexes all over the planet are, if not identical, then very similar. Construction technology, technologies that are also adequate use. In other words, there is one single handwriting in all of this. There is a point to which it is impossible not to pay attention. All the structures and all the knowledge that we see in ancient civilizations suddenly appear out of nowhere, without practical necessity, and in a perfect ready-made form.
Basically, the pyramids are located along the northern tropic, or the 30th degree of north latitude, and exactly in increments of 18 degrees. What was it done for? The first pyramid complex was built in the form of a spiral that formed from the South Pole to the North Pole, and again. According to the ancient text, such pyramids were placed at a distance of 5,000 kilometers from each other. 64 such zones or points were selected. This is an exact figure. Physicist Andrei Verzbitsky understood why the pyramids were built when he saw a detailed diagram of the Pyramid of Cheops. The drawing of a modern satellite dish looks almost the same. The ancient pyramids are a complex of an interplanetary communication system. Modern ultra-high-frequency technology and that pyramidal construction technique structurally coincided. Waveguides, loops, details, down to the smallest detail. As an antenna, the pyramid is arranged more competently than satellite dishes. The pyramidal antenna works taking into account the Earth's magnetic field. This is especially important for deep space communications. The focus is inside and coincides with the place in the burial chamber where there is a granite sarcophagus. For example, there are 3 chambers in the Pyramid of Cheops. The upper one works 4 short distances, the middle one 4 more distant ones, the lower one on intergalactic distances. In this focus, there is, well, an empty room, and the facets of the pyramid and energy, concentrated by hundreds of square meters, are concentrated on the ceiling of this burial so-called chamber, causing micro-vibration of the blocks. And in the camera in this appears. It is a resonator. So, as for the pyramid antenna of Cheops, and there all the resonators are very precisely tuned to the frequency of 438 Hz. From the Great Pyramid of Cheops, it was possible to talk even with Mars, even with the constellation Orion. This complex of pyramids was given the opportunity to communicate with external neighbors' mind, say, Mars and Phaeton, without the use of a spaceship. There was no need for a phone. Information was transmitted through the pyramid. This is a very highly eco-friendly way and a very efficient way of transmitting information. Comparing photos of Mars and ancient chronicles, as a result, you can get a complete picture of what happened. The Phaeton exploded. 3 of its giant fragments rushed towards Mars. Of course, the nearest Mars got especially hard. And it seems that what we have now on Mars happened exactly in such a way, that it was as if a scalp was torn off from the northern hemisphere, because it resembles something like this, that something was removed, and the pit was filled with lava. A terrible calamity did not pass the Earth. Fragments of the Phaeton scattered in all directions, and one of them, a giant asteroid, plunged into the ocean near the Azores with incredible speed. The planet has spewed millions of tons of incandescent lava and ash. A huge tsunami twice circled the globe. Whole continents have gone underwater. The Earth began to rotate chaotically and fall with its orbit. As described by the same Denderian zodiac, the gods holders of the sky stopped the Earth, put it in a different orbit, and gave the moon. This fact explains why all the ancient calendars numbered 360 days, and the modern 365 plus. It was just that the planet was a little closer to the Sun, and this position was the best for it. This one can characterize a single catastrophe: the death of Phaeton, a catastrophe on Mars, and a catastrophe on Earth due to the fact that it is possible, as many believe, that a piece of this planet, which later became the Moon, flew to Earth and began to rotate around it. According to ancient texts, during the catastrophe of Mars and Phaeton, a huge wandering planet entered the solar system. For the inhabitants of the dying world, it could become a new home, but for this, it was necessary to leave it in the life belt of our star. In the orbit of the Phaeton, its fragments were rushing at breakneck speed. The orbit of Mars was no good either. The red planet was much smaller and lighter than the new one. And for equilibrium, bodies in the same orbit must have the same mass. The Earth remained. The gods changed the orbit of the wandering planet and placed it opposite to the Earth behind the Sun. It was heavier than the Earth, so our planet was given a satellite from the wreckage of the Phaeton, that is, the Moon. The gods are probably still living on the planet beyond the Sun. All that remains of the knowledge of the gods on Earth: pyramids and temples. The sands of time have brought the ruins of these complex structures. No one in our world remembers who built them, how and why. But these structures store knowledge about who we are and where we come from in this universe.